Okay, welcome to Double Barrel Non-Duality, where we talk about all things awakening, non-duality, shadow work, whatever comes up. And every month we have a different speaker. This month's speaker is a very special guest, a friend I've had for quite some time, been in this space longer than I have. And she's very well respected and just a lovely human being. Her name is Lisa Cairns.
Hello.
Oh, cool.
Oh, bird.
Welcome.
Oh, wow.
Your presence is well received already. That's beautiful.
Oh, nice. Thanks.
Let's go to Richard.
Hi,
Hey, how's it going, Richard?
it's going well. In one of your latest recordings, you had said something that Shinzen Young had said about disassociation being equated with awakening. And what I was wondering is, it seemed to me that kind of the first step that I'm still trying to take on the path is to disassociate from the inner dialogue, which I'd always identified as myself. So I just wanted to get some clarity on that.
Sure. I'll speak first just because that video did come out yesterday. I know what you're talking about. I can't really speak for Shinzen Young. I just kind of started that conversation with a quote by him. I think what he said was that disassociation or dissociation is kind of like the evil twin of awakening. There's definitely overlap and crossover experientially, but they're not the same thing. And then I kind of riffed on his statement about that. What I can say is that often, as this process starts to unfold, there is a sort of tendency, and it can be through practice or it can just happen naturally, to start to become aware of our thoughts rather than being so completely identified with our thoughts that we don't even realize we're thinking. We don't even realize we're so enmeshed in our mind that we're just identified with it and feel identified with it and feel like that person that's in the world of struggle with who I am and how I'm going to make my life work. And like, that's the feeling of being completely identified. And often as this starts to unravel, this identity thing starts to unravel, we either through practice again, or sometimes it just happens naturally, we suddenly just sort of step back and we're aware of all those thoughts. And it can be daunting, like, whoa, all that really happens in here? Like, what the hell? And to various degrees, that can actually lead to like a deconstruction of identity. It doesn't always happen right away, but it often is that first step, is a sort of disassociation in a sense from the thoughts, or I might say disidentifying from the thoughts, to where you're like, oh, okay, I can see those as thoughts. Those clearly aren't what I am, which leads you to the next inquiry, or perhaps just a sort of investigation through a natural curiosity of, well, what the hell am I then? Or what is actually going on if the whole world of me being those thoughts, and those thoughts constantly reaffirming a me, if that's not what's really happening, well, what the hell is happening, right? That's pretty cool to start to investigate that. So that's how I would say it, is early on that there can be that kind of a stepping back, and it's probably an important part of the process for many people. But dissociation or disassociation in the way he's talking about can be a very extreme version of like pushing thoughts away. This is how it's been described by people who like live this way sometimes for even years. They can be pushing their thoughts away so aggressively that they get into this like mind space that's kind of, well, it's not kind of, it's very vacant, but not in a good way, not in a comfortable way, not in a way that feels intimate. You don't feel intimate and non-dual experientially. You feel rather a very strange isolation and a kind of depersonalization or something like that. So I think there is a significant distinction between that and the beginning of this process as people usually experience it. And there is overlap, but many people who experience like DPDR, depersonalization, derealization, they may not even be interested in awakening at all. They just know that they don't want to suffer. They pushed the suffering away somehow by pushing thoughts away, and then they found themselves in this really bizarre vacant space. And and there's more to it than that, but that's kind of my take on it. Lisa may have something to say as well.
Yeah, I don't know so much about disassociation. I've seen people do it before. And yeah, the mind is like such a complex labyrinth. Like it's incredibly complex what happens. But it kind of reminded me of this quote that I heard from Jung once. And I'm not very good at quoting people, but it was something along the lines of, he was talking about a woman that had been in a relationship with a compulsive liar, and she didn't realize they were a compulsive liar, but there was like intense gaslighting that had happened to her. And then when they were breaking up, or, you know, and it'd been like 20 years, and when they were breaking up, she found out that he lied all the time. And so suddenly 20 years of her life, she didn't know what was real or what wasn't real. And Jung said, like, she could either go mad and end up in the mental institute, or she could or there could be an awakening, because it's seeing through the illusions of thoughts, and it's, I suppose, dependent on which way the body mind goes. Like if she really realized that, it's not saying getting him out of jail for free and saying it's okay to lie, but if she really realized that everything our thoughts tell us aren't the exact truth, there's always a sort of lie in our perception about reality when we look at it through thoughts. And that's like really profound. So being in that place where she realized she didn't know what was real or not real with her partner can go one way or the other. But disassociation, I have seen it before, but I don't know if I've got any comment about that from what Angelo was talking about.
Thank you. Okay. That was Richard. Thanks, Richard. Do you have any follow-up questions or anything on that, Richard?
No, it's just that I spent 50 years on meditation paths where the guru or the person I was studying with basically said, just meditate and all this takes care of itself. And then, you know, I come to read your stuff and listen to that, and it's like, oh no, that's not quite as important as really doing inquiry. And this seems like the very beginning of inquiry, is to examine your relationship with your partner.
In my opinion, it really does come down to identity and investigating what's really, really going on for you. It doesn't have to be in the terms I use or Ramana Maharishi used or anything like that. But meditation is fine. Maybe it's helpful for investigating identity. It probably is if you can drop into deep states of samadhi. But I think we know clearly now, certainly in and of itself, it doesn't just lead to awakening. Like there are many people who meditate for decades and they don't wake up.
Yeah.
I think it's intention somewhere in there matters, in my opinion. But what do you think, Lisa?
Yeah, I think that's right. I remember when I was part of the Buddhist group and I heard someone speaking that like nothing had really changed after 40 years of meditation. Was that? But the thing is we never know what our mind tells us. To them, the mind might have said nothing really changed. But yeah, the reporter isn't always reliable.
Yeah.
Well, that's an awesome point too, is like the reporter isn't reliable, and that's a really good thing to investigate sometimes. Sometimes people will tell me, like, they'll talk to me 3 times, and over 3 times I can't help but notice a pattern when they always say, Angelo, I haven't had an awakening yet, but, and then I'm like, okay, I don't care what you say after the but. Let's talk about the part where you're sure you haven't had an awakening. Like, what do you know about that? How do you know you would know if you did or didn't? What are you referring to? What are you referencing as the one that's monitoring that process? Like, the closest thing sometimes is where the juice is, you know. But all right, my friend, thank you. Let's go to Anna Arena.
Hello, I'm first time here. Hello, Angelo. Hello, Lisa. I'm familiar with Lisa as well. I've been following Angelo you for a while now. Also, a bit worried now. Public speech. Your July retreat. So, my question would be, okay, I'll give a wee bit of what is happening. So for the last like 7 months, I was really like diving into body, getting connected with like emotional shadow trauma stuff, with like strong energetic releases, like body shake and release and all that stuff. Mind wasn't, like mind was just stepping back and just allowing body just to do what body needs to do. And so reactivity has subsided. And I also follow Pernilla, her feather approach. So it feels like I've been not like investigating senses, but more like playing with senses, like blending visual field, bodily sensations and sounds, and sometimes they like very like feels like taste and visual and hearing. It's all like just like body sensation, like one porridge, like and indifferentiated. Yeah, like just like you can't, but still there is like very subject object perception. So I'm in very strange stage now where see like lower 5 feathers are here, higher 5s are here, like non-dual. Like lower 5s haven't fully like fallen off. There's still some residues there, like some like very, very deeply ingrained like trauma stuff still then and again coming up. And had some glimpses into non-dual perceptions, but it feels like I'm neither there and neither here. And there is no drive for practicing, getting somewhere. It's pretty like calm, neutral, and nothing much is happening. Like stealthing mechanism is still there, still apply, still happening. It's still there, and like nothing here, and it's just like I'm neither there, neither there. So, and so yeah, that's like my first question. I will ask second question after that. So I don't know, like, how can I investigate non-dual if there is no even drive to do something? Only thing what I'm doing, it's more like I'm putting your videos like from your non-dual list or subject object, like feather 6 list, but it's more like as much drive I have like cleaning house or washing dishes, that much, it's like, you don't wash dishes because you want to get somewhere, you want to achieve something. You just do it because you have to do it, like, yeah, it's that type of thing, okay, like I'm on this path, something has to happen. So, okay, let's put video, at least something's happening. So, yeah, it's very, like, very strange place to be.
Mm.
So maybe you could talk a wee bit on that, and then I will ask my short second question.
What do you think, Lisa? You want to start?
I can start, but I don't know if I know all your in terminology, so I don't know if I fully understood what you were asking. But I think that this is my reality often. I often don't understand what's happening. So I'm happy to have a bash, but you might find that I'm not really answering what you're asking. But sometimes, yeah. So I think it's really beautiful to have very little drive. Like to drive is important when drive is important to like really have that energy to investigate what you're thinking, what you're doing, what's happening. But when it's not happening, the drive, and there's just this gradual resting into activity, then I feel that there's always the possibility for something deeper to happen. There's a gradual fading out. Roger Castillo, my teacher, he used to say, and this began to happen to me, is you want to just begin to be happy with what's happening, just contented in what's happening. No strong seeking for this or that. And he'd say, so you just become happy to say, okay, I could live the rest of my life like that. And that's not always the way, and that's not always what happens. But when you begin to get to that place, it's like then there is the opportunity for God to play its magic and to let something much deeper be revealed that's got nothing to do with effort, nothing to do with you, nothing to do with practice, nothing to do with will or personal will.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I tend to agree. My instinct as you were speaking was to say, like, describing that kind of neutrality, the will kind of eroding, it can feel uncomfortable. Sometimes it can feel like, what is this? If we reference the past, or what's the apparent past, if we reference thought or memory, it's like, what do I do with this? The old strategies don't work. Should I be applying will? Can I apply, what's even going on? Should I practice? Should I not? Should I just sit? All of those interpretations to me are like side effects of the will just naturally like slowing down. And this is just one way of saying it. The value of that, what the value of that actually is, of that will slowing down. One way of saying it is, you become attuned to something at first vastly more subtle, but that which is vastly more subtle will be discarded by the mind at first. It will be unimportant. It's not big and dramatic like thought is, but doesn't mean it's not important. It's subtle, very, very subtle. And as I think you learn to attune to that subtlety, it becomes less subtle. It becomes actually like everything that's going on, but it's indescribable. It's ineffable. It's not something you'll ever be able to put into words or even self-talk about. But it's profoundly juicy. It's profoundly interesting. It's profoundly intimate. And you're just attuning to that very naturally. Whether outwardly there's practices or not, whether outwardly you're working on better 6 or 7, or you're really just settling into this totality of experience right now. And as Lisa said, learning to love it, but not dualistically, just learning to find the love in it, learning to find the love of being right here. Doesn't actually matter. It doesn't matter how that interpretation is going. The process is already sort of unfolding in that way, it feels like to me. So that's kind of where I'm inclined to point you. If tomorrow suddenly you feel inclined to work on Fetter 6 or something, so be it. That's fine. But I think primarily it's acclimatizing to that subtle. Maybe you could call it the feminine aspect, and a deep trust in just this, a deep trust in whatever is appearing here, however it is, without making distance, without trying to turn it into something or turn it into nothing, or taking a position at all. So I don't know how that lands, but that's my instinct.
It really resonates, really does, Angela. Yeah, really. Just so my second short question is, when I'm going into, like body sensations, there is one of your videos, like how to perceive body without boundaries, something like that, and where you say, like, that image thought overlay, like insistence on the form. In your video, you say put that aside. So I don't know how can I put that aside, because what happens, like you go into sensations, there is this like a thought image overlay. If I'm kind of trying to keep a distance with that, it's kind of insisting more. But like if you zoom and if you get very, very close to that, it's like dissolves, but it appears somewhere else and then appears somewhere else. And it's just, like this is just like trying to shape something. Yeah, that type of way. And then this morning, first time something like very interesting happened. Like I was sitting with that and like sees that's like thought, but then mind was just like paused and like, oh, that thought image is actually distant. Sensations are very like much here, much closer. That's something what first time I noticed today. So how do you separate, detach, put aside that overlay, because it just like keep morphing something.
Yeah, The words I use don't matter. I really just let them go. Like put them aside, so to speak. That's kind of a meta joke, but don't worry about it. Like don't hold too rigidly anything I've said. It's really just for the moment. The way you're talking about it, the way you're describing it is already what I'm pointing to. It's
Okay.
already happening. The way you were like describing how it moves and morphs and shifts, that's where the money is. Like that's exactly what I was just saying before about the totality of experience right now. Trust it. But there often will be this little background thought that's like, ooh, I don't know if I'm doing this right. It wasn't what Angela said or what Rupert said or what Lisa said or whatever. Like it doesn't matter. Those are just little ghosts. And those are part of the totality as well. But you're even the way you're moving is more interesting to me than the words you're saying, because you're already sort of it seems like you're starting to experience that formlessness. And
Yeah,
it's
it
just
feels like
indescribable.
it feels like boundaries are like very washing, like wishy-washy. It's sometimes, like hard to feel
Yeah,
like, yeah, it's
perfect.
like neither there, neither here. Something like
Yeah,
wishy-washy.
I think it's
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah,
Thank you
don't make
very
any
much.
conclusions and just enjoy it. Just enjoy it, really.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Sure. Lisa, do you have anything to follow up on that?
No, it sounds beautiful.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much. That was a cool conversation. All right. Let's go to Tamiko.
Hi, Angelo.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you. Oh, I I'm nervous, but and not and forgive me for going into the past, but I wanted to ask you about some advice you had given to a young woman in last month's double barrel with Lisa Malcolm. And it was a situation where she was asking how to navigate. It felt very relevant to me, and I've been feeling into that because it felt very relevant. But she was talking about how to navigate work responsibilities or practical responsibilities when she feels like she's at a point where there's conflict, but there's no me, there's no them. It's just the energy. She said, people are getting mad, and it's no me, no them, just mad, and she can't blame anyone anymore. And the energy is very airy for her, and I could really relate to it. And you had said something to her about where it gets caught is identity is what catches it or catches hold of it and makes it, the energy gets stuck or heavy. And if you can let if you can let the energy dissipate into the infinite 100%, then it's like very clear. But if it's 99%, there'll be like a heavy texture, or it'll get stuck. And you said something like something about like letting the energy air out and flow out into an infinite sink. And it felt really like I've been sitting with that at times and feeling into it. And when I do that, it's and of course you might give me advice that's completely different and where this doesn't apply, but when I feel into it, it feels very, I feel very thinned out, like it feels very big but very thinned out. And and this belief that oftentimes will continue to come up in me is like, I'm not grounded enough, I have to be more grounded. And or something like, oh, it feels very effortless and thinned out. Identity feels thinned out now, but it's just a matter of time before something is going to come in, and it's just waiting out there, like some energy to catch me out when I least it's waiting for me. And so I wanted to ask you about that, because if you can speak about that a little bit more, or how to navigate that impersonal energy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you seem to be embodying it very naturally, and it seems very, it's really the feminine aspect, and it seems like you really resonate with that energetically. Um, and doubt is a sneaky little devil. Doubt is really good at doing this kind of thing, right? It sneaks in. It's like, wait a minute, you're not grounded. Yeah, like come back to earth or something, right? Um, it just, I think, to some degree, just takes a little bit of experience and knowing the difference between a thought or a doubt, and just really trusting your immediate experience. Um, yeah, I mean, it feels like that's a good direction for you already. You're already taking that in a sense. It's not even a direction, but you're moving in that way. It feels very natural the way you describe it. But yeah, there are going to be like little thoughts popping up here and there saying, "Oh, maybe you're doing it wrong," or "This is too ungrounded," or um, when you say thinned out, is there a sense of like intimacy, like texture of being here in a sense? Maybe not maybe not a center, but just like here, not like like a sense of isolation or anything like that.
Yeah, but it's like too much sometimes.
Hmm.
It's you know, and I feel sometimes there's a tendency to get pulled into energies, get pulled towards you know, it's almost like too much sometimes.
Hmm.
Like things are too tender, or it's, you
Yeah,
know, I just want to protect birds and
yeah, I
dogs
totally know what you mean.
and not for bad stuff to happen.
Yeah, did you say birds?
Well, yeah, birds and like
Yeah,
just the
that I have the
tender,
same
like
problem.
life being so fragile. What?
I have the same problem. I somehow got on an email list. Don't even get on this. It's called um oh God, what is it? Cuddly or something. It's a thing where they send you pictures of like abused animals, and then you can donate money to the center. And I'm like, no, not another one. I don't want to read it. And I read it and I'm like, oh my God, like I just want to like send all my money to that dog and help that poor dog they found on the side of the road. But yeah, it is, well, it's the question is like, is it a lot? It's a lot. Like everything. It's everything. Is it too much? I don't know. Like it's, again, that could be an interpretation. I also have seen people when they're really close to that big shift into dissolution, that they'll say exactly that. Like, whoa, this is too much. Like when you really start feeling what it is to just dissolve completely into everything. You feel, or as my Zen teacher might have said it, that everything just overtakes you. You don't dissolve in anything. It's just all of a sudden that is there. It's everything. It's a whole lot, right? And there's going to be a part of us that's like, whoa, too much. And a lot of times it'll happen a few times, and over time you just settle into it, and it's fine. But yeah,
Okay, so it's not like I should be taking like martial arts classes or judo, or, you know, trying to toughen up, or
I don't. I mean, you might want to, but the only other thing I wanted to say, and I'm sure Lisa's going to have stuff to
I
say about
watched
this.
Fight Club. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Sorry.
The only other thing I wanted to say though is, because when we literally lose physical boundaries, it doesn't mean that practical boundaries aren't important. In fact, practical boundaries can be more important after, for a while, until you learn how to live this way. Um, so what, and because again, that feminine aspect where you get so, someone else's reality is your reality. There's nothing here to be apart from their reality. So I am them. I feel what they feel. I understand the way they move. I could almost like justify anything they do because I totally get it, because
Yeah.
I can't separate from that. So I think it does take some time to acclimatize to that. But if you're ever in question of like, is this a bad situation at work or with a partner or something, go into the relational field. Like talk to somebody you really trust and really bounce it off somebody objectively and say, is this an abusive situation? Do I need to do something practical about this? Like, is this boss treating me wrong or something? You know, whatever. I'm just saying like practical boundaries, don't completely ignore those, because when you start moving in the world of no physical boundaries, no energetically, there's no boundaries, it can take some time to acclimatize for sure to that.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Sure. I'm sure Lisa, well, I don't know if she may have something to say about this, but
Yeah, it was really beautiful what you said, so I'm not sure if there is so much for me to say, but just yeah, just becoming aware you know, of when something or action needs to happen. Because what can happen, which Angelo's already said, is that when you lose your boundaries, it takes time to stabilize in that, because you can often become other people's wants, other people's feelings, because you're not separate from them. So it is your want, it is your feeling in a way, even though it's not. So yeah, you have to be careful with that. And I think Angelo's correct, speaking with someone about situations, someone you trust or someone you're close with, or somebody who specializes in relationships or something. Because I mean, what if somebody is in front of you and is angry? Whose anger is it? And if you energetically have no boundaries either, then it's almost like who you are is everything, and then everything is angry, everything is sad, everything is wanting something. So what I do is or what seems to have happened here, but I'm always adjusting and expanding in this, is I kind of have a good conceptualization of the Lisa character or the tendencies of this body mind. So when I'm in a situation and a feeling or something happens, then I question, is this something Lisa would normally feel or do? And then that sometimes helps me differentiate a little bit, so not to get pulled into things. But I don't know, this is something that in some ways is a very personal thing that has to be explored. But certainly energetically, when your boundaries begin to collapse, then, I mean, who is you and the other?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tomiko.
Thank you.
Okay. Lorraine.
Hi, Angelo and Lisa.
Hello.
Yeah. And thank you for the example, Lisa, you gave of the of the woman and the relationship. Yeah, I can relate to that. And as a result of that, the ending of that 20 years, it actually was 20 years, it was forced to go into major shifts in my thinking, my beliefs, and everything came up for question, everything. And so it has been, so I'm just mentioning that because the synchronicity of just like, wow, okay. But anyways, as relating more and more from the authentic self, or just without authenticity, put it that way. What's happening is when I'm around, especially friends, is that guilt and shame still arises, and it's just like an automatic response. And there is the thoughts in that moment, even afterwards, of I've disappointed them. Yeah, I've hurt them somehow or something. And, and it really feels at the time, and it's like a visceral feeling too in the body. And then so I go automatically into distancing and into distracting, and the next day I go into inquiry and just going through the beliefs about it. So my question is, because I'm so willing to go and move through the shadow work with this and just go deeper and deeper into this, it still feels like I don't know if I'm just like not being realistic with the process of this, but it still feels like it's really sticky. It feels like it's really, I have blind spots or something. I just like, because it seems so out of bounds, this whole guilt and shame. It doesn't, you know what I'm saying, for this circumstance. And so, any way that you can point me into the direction of how to just kind of work with that.
You want to start, Lisa, or would you like me to?
I'm happy to start. So my teacher, Roger Castillo and Ramesh Balsakar, they were my main teachers. They used to teach that from doership, so from the sense of doership, that you are the doer, you have 5 main emotions or reactions that come, and that's guilt, blame, and these are 2 opposites. So guilt is the internal, and then blame is the external. Shame, which is I am bad, and then pride, I am good, and then expectation. And these come with a sense of I am doing. And I found this really profound to work with, like to examine when these 5 emotions come up, and then that feeling of doership that we have, that we are controlling this life, that we own this life, and where that feeling is. Where do we feel like we're a doer? What happens to us when we feel like we're a doer? And so it's not the reactions that is I mean, that's important to investigate, but it's that sense underneath it that I am doing. Is it true that there is somebody there that is doing? And if so, where is that one that is bad or is guilty? You can answer that if you feel like you can.
Yes, that is it. Yes, I'm still in so many other areas. It's hard to explain, but yeah, in so many areas, the doer is not there, and it's beautiful. Just in this, it seems like this one area, the doer is still there. There's still that. Yeah.
I think that shame is such a powerful experience that it's often that one that is the toughest one to work with, the idea that I am bad. So it's really interesting. So I am good, I am bad, like looking at this and looking at the comparisons that you have with other people, like what you're projecting outwards and inwards, and just examining it. And then feeling, where is that? Where is this doer? Where is this I am good, I am bad? It's really deep feeling that I am bad. But it also can, when you explore it and you really go into I am good and bad, it can become very intense. And if it becomes very intense, then you might want to ask to explore it with somebody else, because I feel like the I am bad, the shame one, is like one of the biggest sources of human dysfunction in terms of emotions, not in terms of doership or non-duality, but in terms of all the different emotions. I don't even know if shame is an emotion, but whatever that is in terms of them, it's so strong. Like if you look at personality disorders or psychology, often like shame is a very difficult emotion to work with.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have anything to add. I think it's a good exploration. Right. She just got right to the core of it. And maybe I'll add, be patient. You know, when you're in that space, as she said, it's a tender space. Can be a scary space. It can be intense. Just be patient with yourself, but the exploration is valuable. And I think the question where is hugely valuable. Like precisely where is that one? holds the shame, or who's the one, where's the one that the shame seems to refer back to, and explore gently and with curiosity, and kindness to yourself is valuable for sure.
Yes, thank you both.
Thanks, Lorraine.
Mhm.
Okay, we're going to Mary.
Hi there. So, good to see y'all. And so I was in your retreat a few days ago, and in that I don't know where, I guess it's probably my ego wanting to know, where am I in this process? Because back in the fall, I got the sense that I was in no self, and it was that dryness, that, what have I done? And then a few weeks later or sometime later, the uncaused joy and the uncaused gratitude, it shows up in different flavors. It's just this radiance. And so, and I somewhat before in either of those, I found my sense of being. And that is still there, whether it's kind of just this acceptance that it's always there. I don't have to stay there or try to stay there. I'm just basically content. And so what I was confused about was, because I never really got to the I am per se, but then something from you was that the I am and being are equal. And so, or kind of the same thing with different names. And so I guess I'm just trying to, and then in the one of the people who was in the Q&A last week, you asked her, are there still boundaries? And so I think when I closed my eyes, I realized recently, when I closed my eyes recently, it was like, oh, I don't hear from my ears anymore. There's just space and there's hearing that happens. But when I open my eyes, there are still definite boundaries. And I know I had never heard of fetters. I've been studying this stuff for 35 years. And until about 2 weeks ago, I'd never heard of fetters. And so now you did a talk with Pernille or whatever, I can't remember her name, but from Awakening Curriculum. And y'all did a nice hour-long overview. And I was like, okay, I know, there's still a little doubt, there's still a little attraction, aversion, but and an 8 and 9 are good anyway, but 6 and 7 are where I'm weakest in that little overview and what little I've studied about them. So, anyway, I was just kind of looking for clarity or guidance or whatever based on that little synopsis, perhaps.
Sure. Yeah. If you want to see a more detailed explanation of the fetters in the way we talk about them, just look at my interview series with Kevin Shanelek, because he's the guy who, I mean, the fetters are from the Pali Canon, like they're thousands of years old, but they're not clear. It's not obvious what they mean at all, and they're actually described in different ways in different parts of the Pali Canon. He just found what was meaningful to him in those fetters, but they're very specific shifts that he delineated, and it seems to really work. So for some people, it doesn't work for everybody necessarily. There's no like one size fits all, but they can be helpful contemplations for sure. But anyway, if you check out that series, we unpack it quite a bit. It's like 6 videos or something like that. And when people are talking about fetters contemporarily now, they're usually talking about what he delineated, and people who he worked through the process themselves now teach it. So anyway, but 6 and 7 are really, that's non-duality. That's the realization of non-dual, which means a very clear, thoroughgoing, essentially irreversible seeing through the illusion, first of all, subject object, the sense of basic separation, and then they don't always come in steps either. Very often they come together, and sometimes they even come with the full experience of no self. Like that can all happen at the same time, just so you know. But to delineate 6 from 7, 6 is the sense of subject and object. The world is out there. I'm back here. There's something here holding that world out there. It actually feels like that, even though we don't think about it. But it is a subtle thought. That's 6. And 7 is essentially the realization of formlessness, the realization that even perception doesn't exist. No body, no world, time and space that are meaningless. And that's a big shift typically. It can happen in one sense field for sure, earlier than others. But I think largely the key is if the visual field still feels rather dualistic, then I would maybe work on that sixth fetter if you want to take that approach. Because as you described rightly so, if you close your eyes often, where the hell is sound? Like we don't use a lot of brain processing to locate sound necessarily. Now, depending on who we are, we might for an orchestra, composer or whatever. But generally speaking, sound is more like it's there or it's not. And we're just aware of it when you close our eyes, especially, right? And even body sensation can be somewhat like that when we're not feeling triggered or we're not feeling intense sensations and we're feeling very relaxed. The body sensations can feel very cloud-like. Like, is it in the body? Is it out the body, etc. But the moment you open your eyes, it looks like there's a world out there. It's like the brain processing probably just pushes it out there. And that subject-object experience is very solid feeling until it's not. And when it's not, it's usually pretty obvious. But you can directly investigate it. It's really a fun thing to do in a sense. And it's as simple as, what do you see right in front of your face? Asking yourself, what do I see in front of my face? And looking for the answers. Well, I see a world out there. Okay, well, keep looking at what you're seeing. Keep looking at what you're seeing. Don't think about this. Look at what you're seeing and ask yourself, where am I getting the information about a world? Is it in the scene?
What's a thought? Yeah.
Right. But in the scene, there, do you see a world there?
When you're saying in the scene, is that seeing or S-C-E-N-E?
S-E-E-N.
Okay. In what scene? Okay.
You could say it either way, but I'm just trying to point you to the direct experience. In the direct experience, are there objects? Is there distance? Is there time, space, separation? Like none of that exists there. You're looking direct, you're nose to nose with infinity. Literally, everyone is. And then very quickly, the mind says, no, that's no way. No, that's out there. I'm in here. I'm a body. That's a world. And there's a lot at stake for letting that collapse. We were just talking about that. When that collapses, you don't have boundaries anymore. You can't actually experience physical boundaries, really. You can imagine them, but once the self that imagines them is gone, that's becomes very hard to do as well. However you approach this, you can approach it through inwardly, through looking at where precisely is that sense of the me that's holding the world out there, or the me that it can be even in the emotion spectrum, the me that's feeling shame, like we were talking to someone else about. You can investigate it inwardly because that sense of the center, the self, the core location only exists in relation to the apparent external world. There's no other way that exists.
Oh.
It's a relational thought, actually. It's literally a thought. So you can investigate it there. You can investigate it out here. Like I was saying, just look at what's here and ask yourself, why do I think there's a world here? Why do I think there's an internal and an external? Where's my information coming from? And you won't see that. You'll see colors and shapes and forms in a visual array. And even then, even the labels aren't necessary. The labels are even after the fact: color, form, shape, blonde, tan, red, green. Like these are labels that are literally after the fact. In the actual scene, and what's actually seen there, you won't find any of that. And the more you sort of notice that, you could call it a practice or not, but the more you notice that, the more it becomes rather obvious, actually. And it can come with a big shift, the big shift where it's like, again, dissolving into everything, or everything just dissolving into itself. And it's like, you can't even figure out where there was a center. Doesn't make sense anymore. So there's a lot of ways to kind of approach that, but the visual field aspect of it, I think, is really helpful because, again, you can close your eyes and listen to sound and it's just, you're dissolved. You can have very mystical experiences. But the moment you open your eyes, you feel very much like a me or a self or a person in time and space. So perhaps like looking into the visual field can be helpful. And that's kind of what those fetter approaches are, essentially.
And so the being and the I am, that beingness of the radiance, is that I am that's going to fall away, or is that that's also
well, I don't want to give you like a big old map and like give you a bunch of expectations, because so much of the fun of this is the journey itself.
Yeah.
And if I say being, I may mean something very different than someone else using the same term, or even subtly different. Lisa might use the term in a different way. And so it doesn't matter. The terms don't really matter. Yeah.
Got it.
But if there's no sense of a center anymore, there's no sense of separation and form, it's pretty easy to track down the non-existence of a separate self. Like there's nowhere for that to even pretend to hide anymore. But I wouldn't make a problem of it, and I wouldn't worry too much about trying to define terms rigidly. I am and so forth. Sometimes I say those just because people do get confused with the idea of I am, because to a lot of people there's no sense of I am. They're just like, that's a thought though, you know. But I do know what beingness is. I do know what this experience of like total presence is, or something like that, right? So I kind of say they're probably the same thing, but as people are kind of shifting, they might interpret that as a sense of self that's really big or something. Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure. Lisa, do you have anything else to add?
No, that was beautiful.
Can I ask one
Okay.
more question then?
Go for it. This one's for
Okay.
Lisa.
Okay. Oh.
I'm
Okay,
just
so
joking.
I'm gonna in the retreat, you planted a seed, a little nugget, a nougat, where you said that the mind, you were saying if you look to the left, it's totally different. If you something like this, as I recall, and then you said that it's the mind that creates continuity, and that was like, "Huh?" And so then in the next meditation, and this has been a question with me for a while because the ringing in the ears has been there for decades, and is it tinnitus or tinnitus or however you say it, or is it because what I realized was, it seems like it's always there, but yet it's only there when I notice it. And so then I realized, oh, is that what he's talking about? What you're talking about when you said, because it's like, oh, no, it's just when my attention goes there. And then the mind says my ears always ring. But so I'm just kind of curious about that.
Yes, that is what I was talking about, essentially.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
I know that's what my voice of depression. Depression would say, when it would leave, and then, oh, thank God I have a break. And then it would come back. It's like, you're a fraud. You've always been depressed. And yet it does the same voice with presence. When I was first getting glimpses of presence, it would be like, oh, you're a fraud. You've never been here before. And on one hand, that's true because it's always fresh. And so it was weird how my mind would just twist the hell out of it. And then once it happened enough on both sides of that spectrum, I was like, okay, just shut up, and I'm just going to be here. So yeah, okay, so and it's the same thing with the ringing. So thank you.
You are. Okay, we're going to Federico.
Hi,
Hey, buddy.
how are you? Okay, let's see how this comes. So I went to your retreat, it was great. I was also in Violet's retreat, so both of them have helped me. Your chapter on emotions is awesome, but like this is so weird because I'm so confused about how can sometimes it just click and literally emotions feel like, oh, that's so easy, like that they're so innocent, like wow, they don't matter at all. And a day later is just I'm a mess again. And it's like, what happened? Where did it go? And so I also found that my mind like can turn like that non-resistant state into a goal. So now it's like, oh, how do I go back to that? I know the techniques to not be feeling bad, so let's do them. But again, that's just resistance, right? So it's like a trick that perpetuates itself. And when I notice it, like of course it becomes easier because I can just think, oh, that's a thought, and maybe it eases up. Like, oh, I need to get somewhere. Yeah, that's a thought. Or what do I do to not feel bad? Okay, what does feel bad mean? So I can do that exercise, but when you're completely lost in your mind, you're just in pain without even realizing it. So like, why does it go away? Like how to just make them easy all the time? Like I don't know.
Okay. Lisa, do you want to start? Or would you like me to?
Maybe to start. And so I tend to break things down a bit, but I'm not sure if you're used to my language or ever heard the way that I speak about things before, but so I'll just say it quickly. So to me, and I think you maybe said that and maybe meant that, but to me, emotions aren't the problem. It's the seeking which is the problem. So emotions are sensations that are appearing, and they're going to be a variety of good and bad emotions, and that's natural, and that's the way the body navigates itself. Seeking, to me, forms at a very young age, and seeking is what forms the illusory self. And with the appearance of seeking, what it does is it's always trying to make form out of everything. So the first one is, I am a name, I am a body, I am a person. And then eventually, as it gets more and more complicated, it begins to tell itself the story, I need to have certain emotions in order to be happy. And then it only sees happiness as positive emotions. And then it gets caught in this loop of like a dog trying to catch its tail, where it's always seeking for positive emotions, which is an impossibility. Emotions are something that come and go, and they're meant to come and go. It's informing us about our environment. The seeking element exacerbates it all and sends out like these octopus tentacles into like different thought streams. So the seeking creates the form, it creates an identity, and then from that, the idea, the idea of what it should and shouldn't be, and then this creates really complex ideas, and then this gets repeated for 20 years if we only believe in one lifetime. If we believe in previous lives, then it could be thousands and thousands of lives. These ideas have been repeated and these seeking patterns have been repeated. So that's my like terminology of the way that I phrase it. So it's not the emotions, it's not the initial emotion that's the problem. It's the seeking energy that then tries to make form out of the emotion and then goes off into these deluded ideas about the emotion, about the story, and about the situation. So there's different things that can be done, but my teacher used to say to me, know that anything that I say is a description of something that can happen. It's not a prescription, because I'm not actually giving you a prescription, because who would I be to give you a prescription? But I can say something, and then that body may or may not do it. So with emotional work, you can do different things to settle down the emotions. You can do yoga, you can do breathing work, you can do somatic therapy. I'm sure Angelo recommends and suggests a lot of different things. And all of this can go alongside the self-inquiry or the investigation of who you are. And often you need to do them simultaneously because, like you say, the emotions can be overwhelming, and then you can just get stuck in days and days or weeks or months of hell realms. So it's often good to do these things simultaneously, particularly body work. And then at the same time, investigating who is the one that has emotions, is trying to avoid emotions, and that needs to get something from those emotions. And this, to me, is the deepest, most beautiful and profound thing that any human can do. often you need to do it in union with a practice which calms the person down and calms the emotions down. Yeah. That is all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Lisa. I don't have anything to add. I think that's, yeah, very, very clear.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand. Thank you. Let's see if there's something that wants to be addressed. Yeah, no. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.